Ears and Beers, episode 37. What's on tap for this episode? We've got to talk about the Mountaineer basketball program struggling, reeling, in a little bit of trouble after a third straight conference loss. And we've also got to react to some exciting, some new news in the announcement of this Country Roads Trust. I'm Wesley Euler. First, as always, what are we drinking? If you're watching along on YouTube, you can see I've got a Labatt Blue here, baby. Oh, yeah, Canada's finest. I spent yesterday out on the pond here, enjoying a little pond hockey. Was out there for about 4 or 5 hours with a bunch of my buddies, with Adam Crowley, certainly, as well, too. And when you're playing pond hockey, you know, when you're out on the lake, having some fun with the fellas, the only beer is Labatt Blue to drink while you're playing a little ice hockey as well. So here we go. Ah, yeah. Salud. All right. We'll talk a little hoops, talk a little Country Roads Trust, and then we'll get out of here. Basketball team's in trouble. No need to sugarcoat that. It's not time to panic, but they're certainly reeling a little bit. I think it's fair to say 3 straight conference losses after falling Saturday afternoon down in Lubbock, 78-65, the final against Texas Tech. You know, I don't necessarily want to get into all the minutia of the game. You know, it's been over 24 hours since the game ended. This isn't one of those typical instant reaction podcasts that I do as soon as the game ends. And I don't think we really need to go into all of the minutia of what happened Saturday down in Lubbock, because it's the same fish we've seen before from this Mountaineer men's basketball team. It's same church, different pew, right? The Mountaineers, they dropped 3 straight conference games now, and they're sitting at 13-5 on the season. And that's 18 games in now. That's a pretty solid sample size. That's over half your season. 13-5, 18 games in. You've played a nice portion of the conference schedule now. And I think what we saw Saturday in Lubbock, Texas is similar to the themes that we've seen all season. So 13-5, 18 games in. Wait, is that 18 games? 13-5? Yeah, 18 games. All right, just had to double check my math real quick. I mean, come on. I am a journalism broadcast media kid, all right? I didn't do math. I didn't do addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. You name it. Can't do it. 18 games in, I think there's 4 things for sure that you saw on Saturday against Lubbock. I'm whooshing a little bit already, folks. 4 things that I know for sure about this team 18 games in, and 4 things that were, you know, big part of the reason why you've lost these last 3 games, and certainly why you lost Saturday in Lubbock. The first one, and everyone knows this, everyone's been discussing this, it's bad play around the rim offensively. Bad might be letting the team off the hook. It's horrible play around the rim offensively. You know, they can't finish near the rim. Not tough shots, certainly not bunnies. They miss way too many makeable shots, easy looks, layups. And they just get dominated in the paint, lopsided score in the paint about every single game. It was 30-16 against Texas Tech. You're getting doubled up in the paint on a pretty consistent, regular basis. And I know a lot of people want to, you know, Isaiah Cottrell feels like he's at the forefront of this conversation. Gabe certainly hasn't had a ton of touch around the rim other than a couple games this year. But honestly, it's everybody. It's not just the bigs that are poor offensively around the rim. It's everybody. Malik Curry, for all the strides that he's made, he still tries to do too much close to the basket. For Taz and Sean McNeil, and how we know clearly they're the 2 best players on this team, and they're good basketball players, they miss too many shots that they should make around the basket. Jalen Bridges as well, too. So the things that cost you against Texas Tech, the things that are becoming themes now on this season, the things that are clear about this team 18 games into the year. All right, I got 4 of them for you. One is that they're just bad around the rim offensively, and they get outscored in the paint to a lopsided margin, and that ends up costing you most of the time. The second thing is that they're a bad passing team as well. The lack of assists is, like, it's astonishing. Seriously, they had 6 team assists Saturday in Lubbock against Texas Tech. The previous Saturday against Kansas at Fog Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, they had 5 team assists and 10 at the midweek against Baylor on Tuesday at home at the Coliseum. That 10 number isn't cutting it, but at least it's close. 5 team assists against Kansas, 6 team assists against Texas Tech. That's pathetic, man. Share the ball, move the ball, but they can't in the half court. They have nothing offensively. They dribble the ball to death like they're trying to, I don't know, dribble a snake, like they're trying to crush a snake to death. It's maddening. It's maddening. There's way too much ISO from a team that isn't good at running ISO. So not only can you not score in the paint, you also, your lack of team assists is just astounding. 6 on the road in Lawrence, 5 on the road in Lubbock. Sorry, I got that backwards. 6 on the road in Lubbock, 5 last week in Lawrence. That's not going to cut it on the road in general, but particularly against really good teams. So when you can't score in the paint and you can't move the ball as a team and create in the half court, honestly, it's maybe impressive that they've been in most of these games, at least, you know, second half of Kansas notwithstanding, when you look at it that way. Third thing that I know about this team for sure. They are good for, like clockwork. You can book it. You can mark it down. You can write it in Sharpie. They are good for one horribly timed scoring drought every single game. Second half of it was for the most part a really good back and forth game between WVU and Texas Tech. Second half, Taz Sherman made a 3. I had to write this down because I wanted to make sure I got it right. Taz Sherman made a 3 to put WVU up 54-53 with 6:14 to play in the game. 6:14 to play in the game, and you're up 54-53. 3 minutes later, it was 65-56 Tech. From Taz's 3 with 6:14 left that puts you up by a point until there was 2 minutes left in the game, you made 1 field goal. You take the lead, about 6 minutes to play, on the road, hostile environment, and in the next 4 minutes, 1 field goal. And this has happened every single game. In Baylor, it was a first half drought, right? When Baylor went on that, was a 25-3 run or whatever it was. In Kansas, it was to start the second half when they just absolutely buried you. Against Texas, when you were in that game, despite not having Taz and not having Gabe and being shorthanded, it was at the end of the first half. Texas goes on a run. You don't score for 5-6 minutes. You have 1 basket, I think, in the last 5-6 minutes, and that was pretty much it. You can earmark it, man. This team is good for one just crippling, horribly timed scoring drought about every single game. In the last 6 minutes of the game, you can't go a 4-minute stretch and only make 1 basket. You're not going to win, particularly on the road against a really good team. And the last thing is, and maybe this relates to my third point in the last 6 minutes there, there's just a lack of killer mentality amongst this team. You know, teams like Baylor, teams like Kansas, teams like Texas Tech, they just know how to put teams away late. They just know how to win down the stretch in crunch time. They know how to claw out those close victories. Like, one thing that I know for sure about this team is that in those big moments, they come up small. And you just can't have that. In the Big 12 Conference, that's a recipe to lose a lot of games, because you're going to have a lot of close games that come down to the wire. And, man, you just got to have the intestinal fortitude to be comfortable in those moments and to have what it takes to go out there and win. And they have not displayed that this season. In fact, it's been the opposite. In those big moments, they've come up small. So, again, the 4 things that I think are pretty clear about this team that cost them Saturday in Lubbock, that have also become a theme throughout the season now, 18 games in: bad play around the rim offensively and just getting dominated in the paint. Number 2, lack of team assists. They can't move the ball. They can't pass the ball. It's bad. Number 3, they're good for one horribly timed scoring drought every single game. And number 4, in big moments, they come up small. And that's why after an encouraging start at 12-1 before you got to conference play, 11-1 before you got to conference play, you're now 13-5. You lost 3 straight conference games, 4 out of 5 of your last Big 12 games. Those 4 things I think are blatantly obvious at this point. And now I need a drink of this Labatt. Like you needed to. We talked about this on the podcast ahead of this 3-game stretch from hell for the Mountaineers. You needed to get at least one of these last 3 games. At Kansas, Baylor at home, at Texas Tech. That's a hell of a 3-game stretch. You had to get at least one of those 3 games, and you got none. And now you get OU at home on Wednesday, a game that feels like you have to win at the Coliseum to stop the bleeding, but that won't be easy. Oklahoma is a good team as well, too, and they've now lost 4 straight games. So that's going to be a really desperate Sooners club that's coming to the Coliseum Wednesday night. They're going to be desperate. They're going to be looking to, get their season off life support and get back in the win column, just like the Mountaineers are. And then you could really, it feels like Wednesday you have to have at home. And then you could really use Saturday down in Arkansas against the Razorbacks as well, too. 13-5 right now is a little daunting, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. You got Oklahoma, you got Arkansas, then you got Baylor, and then I believe Texas Tech, and then Iowa State. So 3 of your next 5 games are against ranked teams, and the other 2 are against Oklahoma and Arkansas squads that are solid, that are good as well, too. You have to get Wednesday at home against OU to stop the bleeding. And then you could really you need to probably, not as much, but Saturday against Arkansas in the Big 12 SEC Challenge would be huge too. Then all of a sudden you look up, you're 15-5, and you look at the rest of the schedule, and that 19-20 win mark that you're trying to get to seems realistic, seems attainable, feels doable. If you win these next 2, you're 15-5. And the stretch run is really difficult, but you can see this team finding 4 or 5 more wins again, the rest of the way. You got TCU twice, you get Kansas State again, you get Oklahoma State again, you get Oklahoma again. Maybe you're able to knock off one of Baylor and Kansas. Maybe you get some revenge on Texas Tech back at the Coliseum in February. If you can win these 2 this week, Wednesday against OU at home, Saturday down in Arkansas against the Razorbacks, you're 15-5. I'll feel more comfortable. But right now, we've put ourselves back in that position that we're going to be sweating on Selection Sunday again. You got to get these next 2. You needed to get one of these last 3. You didn't. You really got to win Wednesday, and Saturday would help too. Because you get to 15-5, you stop the bleeding, you get 2 straight wins. All of a sudden, it feels doable. And you go down to Baylor, you go down to Waco, and you see what you got. But, man, you have to stop the bleeding this week, and it has to start Wednesday night against the Sooners. I will have a reaction podcast for you immediately following the game Wednesday night against Oklahoma. It's an 8:00 tip, one of those weird 8:00 games at the Coliseum. So you'll all probably be in bed by the time the podcast gets uploaded, but you can have it Thursday for your commute or for your workout or for whatever you got going on. It's these next 2 games are massive. Even 14-6, I'd still like this team's chance to get 19, maybe 20 wins. And that's where you want to be ahead of the Big 12 tournament, to feel much better about your status as a tournament team. All right, one swig of this Labatt, and then we're going to talk a little Country Roads Trust. All right, let's talk a little Country Roads Trust. This is a major development for our athletic department at WVU. There's absolutely no denying that. You look at some of the names that are attached to this: Jerry West, Don Nealon, Pat McAfee, Pat White, Deshaun Butler, Ginny Thrasher, Daryl Talley, Jed Jorko, Mike Gansey. The list goes on and on. At the helm of this thing, you've got guys like Oliver Luck and Ken Kendrick, which is fantastic. Ken Kendrick, I think most people are familiar with this now, but, the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks, of course, everybody knows who Oliver Luck is. Those are 2 guys that you've got professional sports team ownership between them. You've got NCAA, you've got commissioner experience between them. This is a great thing for WVU. Ken Kendrick, he went on Metro News with Hoppy, and was talking about this. I believe the exact quote from him, and I might be a word or two off here, but it was something along the lines of, this is all about making Mountaineer athletics as competitive as possible. And you know what? In this new world order that is the NIL era, this is huge. This is key. You've seen a lot of other programs have these type of trusts built or developed or created, whatever the right term is. And I think eventually this is where this is all going to go. It's good to see WVU be one of the schools that feels like is getting on the front foot and getting out early with this thing. Just a really accomplished and diverse group of people, from billionaire owner Ken Kendrick to former punter and talk show host Pat McAfee, right? And WWE personality Pat McAfee. It's a really wide. I mean, you've got football and basketball on here, obviously, but you've got Jenny Thrasher, the gold medal winning rifle. Rifle. Yeah, it was rifle. I don't know that. I don't think you call it gold medal. Is it gold medal and air rifle? I think technically you get it. All right. You got Daryl Talley, who was part of the Buffalo Bills in the 90s. You've got a lot of different eras represented here, from Jerry West and Don Nealon and Daryl Talley, who are a little bit longer in the tooth, to see some younger people like Jenny Thrasher, like Pat McAfee, like Mike Gansey, who haven't been out of it all that long. It's huge for the university. It's exciting. It's a big development. But it also does leave me with two questions, and I'll go here and we'll kind of lay these out, and this will be how I start to wrap this thing up. The two questions for me that I will that I'm intrigued to see how they play out over the next 5-10 years with the Country Roads Trust are these. The first is how it affects the MAC. And the MAC, of course, for those of you who don't know what I'm referencing, the Mountaineer Athletic Club, that is WVU Athletics fundraising branch. That's how they pay for facility upgrades. That's how they pay for new buildings. That's how they pay coaches' salaries and all that different kind of stuff. The Mountaineer Athletic Club. In the past, if you wanted to donate money to WVU, if you were Ken Kendrick and you got enough money, you're a billionaire that you can own a baseball team and you want to give some of that money to WVU as well too, the Mountaineer Athletic Club would be who you'd go through. You'd say, hey, I'm willing to donate $20,000 a year. I want it to go to WVU football. I want it to go to WVU baseball. I know in the last couple years, the MAC secured a huge, like over $1 million donation for soccer as well too. So, you could call up the people that work for the MAC, development officers, I think is the official title. And you could say, hey, let's sit down, let's get together. They'd fly out to maybe wherever you live. They'd take you out for a nice dinner. Maybe you golf. They schmooze you a little bit. You donate some money to the athletic club. Now, all of a sudden, I mean, right? I'm not being naive here. I'm not breaking any news. You could see where this is going. If you're somebody who's got money to give, maybe you want to give it to the Country Roads Trust instead of the MAC. Or maybe say you give $10,000 a year to the MAC, and all of a sudden you say, hey, you know what? I want to give $5 to the MAC now. I don't want to give $5 to the Country Roads Trust. Because I want to, instead of just paying for the facilities, maybe I want to feel like I'm more connected to the players and the athletes. I've been told, I'm not Johnny Scoops over here, all right, but I do have a few sources. A large portion of my family is from West Virginia. Spent a lot of time in Doddridge County in my life. All right, I've season tickets for decades in my family. We've had some family members that have been employees at WVU. I went to school there. I worked for the athletic department for a few years. I worked in television news in West Virginia. I got some sources. Okay. I'm not Johnny Scoops. I'm not, I'm not Mike Casazza or Chris Anderson or Keenan Cummings. All right. I'm not that connected, but I got some sources. I've been told that within the MAC that there's an understanding that this was necessary for WVU, that we had to go here, but that there's also a little bit of fear to see how this plays out just from a financial perspective over the next handful of years. And my second question as it relates to the creation of the Country Roads Trust, the first being how it affects the MAC. The second question is kind of related to that too. And that is how it affects player availability, maybe is the best way for me to state this, because here's where this whole thing could go. Say again, let's go with that number that I threw out a minute ago. I'm somebody who donates $10,000 to the Mountaineer Athletic Club every single year. I write a 10 grand check to WVU Athletics every single year. Let's say all of a sudden, Country Roads Trust, signs an agreement with, let's say, Nico Markiel, right? Our baby Jesus, next great quarterback. And if you're somebody who donates to the Country Roads Trust, maybe once a year you get to have a Zoom call with Nico. Maybe they have exclusive events in Morgantown where players like Nico attend, where players like Taz Sherman attend. And only if you donate so much to the Country Roads Trust can you come hang out with them. Maybe if you donate a certain number to the Country Roads Trust, you can have a happy hour Zoom call, happy hour FaceTime with Pat McAfee. Maybe you can shoot hoops with Mike Gansey. Hang out with Taz Sherman. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it affects player availability and how the money will be tied to that. So both of those questions are kind of intertwined, how it affects the MAC and how it affects player availability. And I think they're both intertwined from a donor standpoint, because again, if I've been given $10,000, $20,000 to the MAC every single year, and yeah, I certainly get cool perks from that. The MAC, maybe they maybe take me on a road trip with the team for a football or a basketball game, put me up in a nice hotel in Fort Worth and we go watch WVU play TCU, something like that, hotel in Dallas. You get a lot of cool gear, you get cool access, facilities tours, all that kinds of stuff. But if all of a sudden the only way to tap into the players is through the Country Roads Trust, player availability is an interesting angle for this to me too, and how that affects the MAC and the financial side of things. Like this could all go to, I mentioned Mike Casazza and Chris Anderson and those guys. I heard them talking about this and I didn't think of this, but this was very interesting. What if this all went to like a WVU Netflix type, a WVU Disney Plus type thing, where you pay the Country Roads Trust $10, $15 a month and you get access to all this exclusive player stuff. Maybe there's a YouTube series with Nico. Maybe there's a YouTube series with Taz. Maybe there's an exclusive podcast that Bryce Ford Wheaton does. So I'm very interested to see where this all goes. We've talked about this on the podcast before too. WVU is already, when it comes to their coaches, when it comes to their players, when it comes to media access, they're one of the stingier programs in the country. And that pisses a lot of people off. A lot of the people who cover WVU at a high level but still don't get the access they think they deserve. I'm not talking jabronis like me who just sit here and drink beers in my Harry Potter closet and talk about the team. I'm talking about real boots on the ground reporters and journalists. I don't know if you guys have noticed, Graham Harrell's been here for a few weeks now. The only interviews he's done have been with Dan Zangrilli, WVU Media, Learfield IMG College. They pay for that access. And then with Gold and Blue Zone, who, the formerly WVU Illustrated, who, has a pretty serious partnership with the school. That's it. Graham Harrell's not talking to 24/7 Sports. Graham Harrell's not talking to any of the other outlets in town. And again, part of me, I'm good with this for WVU because there's a fine line between, giving everyone access and giving no one access. And I'd rather err on the side of caution. Like every slap dick who runs a WVU blog doesn't deserve access to the team. I know that'll piss a lot of people off if they read this, and there are a lot of WVU blogs that cover the team well, but just because you have a good amount of clicks on the internet and a couple thousand, 10,000, 20,000 followers on social media, that doesn't just mean you should get access to the team. But again, even people like 24/7 Sports don't get a ton of access to the team. WVU is a little stingy with player availability, with coach availability. I'm sure you probably noticed Neil Brown hasn't done a ton of interviews since the season ended. And that's just kind of how WVU's always been. They keep that stuff closer to the vest. They keep that stuff in-house. It's a lot of IMG, a lot of Learfield stuff, right, with the official media partner, but that's essentially team media. There's a fine balance there because I know as fans, we would like more. We'd like to hear more from Graham Harrell. We'd like to hear more from Neil Brown. But I also, like I said, every slapdick who runs a Gold and Blue or a Voice of Whoever or a this and that blog doesn't deserve access, doesn't need access to the team either. but I'm very interested again to see how this all plays out. So that's where I'm at on the Country Roads Trust. It's huge for the program. It's a massive development. I love to see the diverse list of people from all different, from athlete, from executive, from owner to like, it's all over the place. And you got football, you got basketball, you got baseball, you got gymnastics, you got rifle, you've got all these different sports represented. That's awesome. But, you know, with everything comes some questions, comes some wait and see how it affects the MAC, how it affects player availability when WVU is already pretty stingy in that regard. Those are the two things that I'm very excited to see how they play out again over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years as this, you know, this new world order of NIL comes into play. So that's going to do it for this episode 37. Some thoughts on hoops, some thoughts on the Country Roads Trust. I hope I didn't ramble too long. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Have a good week, everybody. And like I said, Wednesday night, late night, I'll have that Oklahoma reaction podcast that'll be dropping into all of your inboxes, wherever you get your pods. A reminder, we're on, you know, I don't know where you might be consuming this, but we're on YouTube, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeart, we're on Google Podcasts. I've been told Amazon has a podcast platform now. We're on there too. So you can find us wherever you get your content. YouTube, if you want the visuals, wherever you get your podcast. If, you know, you're listening in the car while you work out or while you're at work, whatever, if you're just trying to ignore your family, Ears and Beers, wherever you consume your content, you can find us there. So I'll get back with you guys on Wednesday, where hopefully we'll be recapping a much needed win against the Oklahoma Sooners to stop the bleeding after 3 straight Big 12 conference losses. So take care, everybody. Enjoy the start of your week. I'll talk to you Wednesday night. This has been episode 7 of the Ears and Beers podcast. Let's go, Mountaineers. Let's go drink some beers.